The exile. The judgment falls. The Grand Assembly Hall stretched across 3 kilometers of pristine white metal and glowing crystal. It floated in the void between star systems, a monument to unity among the galaxy's civilized species. Inside, representatives from 47 worlds sat in tiered circles, their forms as varied as the stars themselves. Some breathed methane, others lived in liquid environments within specialized chambers. A few existed as pure consciousness, their presence marked only by shimmering energy fields. Ambassador David Chen stood at the center of it all. He was a small figure compared to most beings present, but he stood straight, his dark suit pressed perfectly, his expression calm despite the weight of what was happening. Behind him, Captain Sarah Mitchell and Dr. Robert Kahn waited silently, the only other humans allowed in the chamber. The air felt heavy, charged with decisions that would reshape humanity's future. High Arbiter Quellen spoke first. The being resembled a floating collection of geometric shapes, constantly rotating and reforming. Its voice emerged from everywhere and nowhere, resonating through translation devices worn by all present. Humanity of Earth and its colonies, you have been summoned to answer for your actions. The Council has reviewed your species' conduct over the past 30 years since first contact. The evidence is disturbing. David felt his jaw tighten, but he kept his face neutral. He had expected this. The signs had been there for months. Quiet conversations that stopped when humans entered rooms. Delayed responses to diplomatic messages. Trade agreements that suddenly fell through without explanation. Quellen continued. Your species displays patterns of behavior that threaten galactic stability. You expand too quickly. You adapt too rapidly. You question established protocols without respect for traditions that have maintained peace for millennia. Most concerning, you refuse to abandon your capacity for violence despite having achieved space travel. A murmur rippled through the assembly. David saw the Vexery delegation, tall beings with blue crystalline skin, nodding their approval. The Korthans, massive creatures covered in armor plates, remained still but their eye stalks focused intently on the proceedings. Ambassador Chen, you may speak in humanity's defense before we announce our decision, Quellen said. David stepped forward. He had prepared for this moment, rehearsed arguments about human contributions to galactic knowledge, about the medical advances humans had shared, about the trade partnerships that had benefited everyone. But standing here now, facing judgment from species who had already made up their minds, those careful words felt hollow. Instead, he spoke from his heart. High Arbiter, Council members, I will not deny that humanity is young by your standards. We have been traveling between stars for only 30 years while some of you have done so for thousands. We are still learning, still growing, still making mistakes. But that is not a crime. That is the nature of any species that wants to become better than it was. He paused, looking around the chamber. Some beings watched with curiosity, others with barely concealed contempt. You say we expand too quickly. We do not see it that way. We see empty worlds that could support life, and we ask ourselves why we should not give our children a chance to thrive there. You say we adapt too rapidly. We call that innovation. When we see a problem, we work to solve it. When we encounter a challenge, we find a way through it or around it. The Vexery delegate made a sharp clicking sound, their species' expression of disapproval. David continued anyway. You say we refuse to abandon violence. That is true. We remember our history. We know what happens when peaceful people have no means to defend themselves. We choose to be capable of violence while practicing peace. There is a difference between having teeth and using them. Your words prove our point, Quellen interrupted. You think like warriors, not like civilized beings. The galaxy has moved beyond such primitive concerns. We have maintained peace through cooperation and mutual understanding for 3,000 years. Peace through submission, you mean, David said quietly. We have studied your history, High Arbiter. We know about the species that were integrated into the Council. We know how many of them lost their unique cultures, their independent thought, their ability to choose their own paths. You call it civilization. We call it slow extinction. The chamber erupted in voices. Dozens of languages overlapped, translation devices struggling to keep up. Captain Mitchell tensed behind David, her hand moving instinctively toward where her sidearm would have been if weapons were permitted in the assembly hall. Dr. Khan placed a gentle hand on her shoulder, a silent reminder to stay calm. Quellen's form pulsed with angry red light. You dare insult this council? You, whose species has existed in space for barely a generation, lecture us on civilization. I speak truth as I see it, David replied. Is that not what you asked for? A defense? Or did you only want me to beg for mercy that was never going to be granted? Silence fell across the chamber. The truth of David's words hung in the air like a physical thing. Everyone present knew the decision had been made before this hearing began. This was theater, a show of council authority, not genuine deliberation. Quellen's form stabilized, geometric shapes locking into a rigid pattern. The council has reached its verdict. Humanity is hereby expelled from all council territories. You have 30 standard days to remove your people, your ships, and your structures from any world or system under council jurisdiction. Any human presence remaining after that deadline will be considered an act of war and dealt with accordingly. David felt the words like a physical blow, but he did not let it show on his face. And what of the humans who have married into other species? The children born of those unions? The humans who have lived on council worlds for decades and consider them home? They may choose, Quellen said coldly. Renounce their human heritage and remain, or leave with the rest of your kind. There will be no middle ground. You would force people to choose between their families and their species. Dr. Khan spoke for the first time, his voice shaking with anger. That is not justice. That is cruelty. That is the price of your arrogance, a Corthan delegate said, its voice like grinding stones. You should have learned humility. Instead, you learned pride. Now you will learn consequences. David looked at the alien slowly, memorizing its face. He looked at each council member in turn, burning their images into his memory. When he spoke again, his voice was steady, clear, and filled with quiet determination. Very well. Humanity accepts your judgment. We will leave your territories. We will take our people, our ships, our knowledge, and our potential, and we will go. But understand this, you are making a mistake. Not because we will seek revenge, but because you are teaching us that we can only rely on ourselves. You are showing us that the galaxy is not a place of cooperation but of hierarchy. You are proving that might makes right, despite all your words about civilization and peace. He straightened his shoulders. Humanity will remember this day. We will remember who stood with us and who cast us out. And when the time comes, when the galaxy changes as it always does, we will remember who treated us as equals and who treated us as children to be disciplined. I hope, for all our sakes, that you have chosen wisely. With that, David turned and walked toward the exit. Captain Mitchell and Dr. Khan followed. Behind them, the council chamber remained silent. No one spoke as the three humans left. No one tried to stop them or soften the blow. They had made their judgment, and now they would live with it. The long journey back. The human transport ship Perseverance drifted through the void, its engines humming steadily as it carried David and his delegation back toward Earth. The journey would take 6 weeks to cross the distance between the Council's neutral meeting ground and humanity's home system. 6 weeks to think about what had happened and what would come next. David sat in his quarters, staring at the view screen that showed the endless stars. Captain Mitchell had tried to get him to eat something. Dr. Khan had suggested sleep. He had declined both. His mind would not stop working, would not stop analyzing every word spoken in that chamber, every expression he had seen on alien faces. The door chimed. David considered ignoring it, but he knew his companions would not give up easily. Come in. Captain Mitchell entered, carrying 2 cups of coffee. She handed one to David and sat down across from him without asking permission. That was Sarah's way. She had served with David for 12 years, first in Earth's Defense Forces and then in the Diplomatic Corps. She did not believe in unnecessary formality between friends. "You did everything you could," Sarah said quietly. "No one could have changed their minds. They decided to exile us before we even arrived." "I know," David replied. "That does not make it easier to accept." "No," Sarah agreed. "It does not. But dwelling on it will not help either. We need to think about what comes next. 30 days is not much time to evacuate everyone from council space." David took a sip of coffee. It was strong and bitter, exactly how he liked it. "We have approximately 47,000 humans living on council worlds. Another 15,000 on mixed colonies. Thousands more on trading vessels and research stations throughout council territory. The logistics are going to be a nightmare," Sarah said. "And then there is the question of where they will go. Earth and the colonies are already crowded. We do not have the infrastructure to absorb that many people quickly." "Then we will build it," David said simply. "We have no choice. The council has given us 30 days, so we will do the impossible in 30 days. That is what humans do." Sarah smiled slightly. "Is that what we do?" "It is what we have always done," David replied. "When Europeans told humans that crossing the ocean was impossible, we built ships and crossed it anyway. When scientists said humans could not fly, we invented airplanes. When the universe said humans could not leave Earth, we built spacecraft and claimed the stars. Impossible just means no one has done it yet." Dr. Khan's voice came through the intercom. "Ambassador Chen, you should see this. We are receiving transmissions from Earth. The news has spread." David and Sarah hurried to the bridge. The main viewscreen showed dozens of news broadcasts from Earth and the colonies, all reporting the same story: humanity expelled from Galactic Council. The reactions varied from outrage to fear to determination. Some called for immediate military mobilization. Others advocated for isolation, for humanity to turn inward and forget about the wider galaxy. A few voices spoke of reconciliation, of finding a way back into the Council's good graces. But one voice caught David's attention. President Elena Martinez stood at the podium in the United Earth Government's Assembly Chamber, her face calm but her eyes blazing with fierce determination. "The Galactic Council has judged us unworthy of their company," President Martinez said. "They have looked at humanity and decided we are too young, too aggressive, too unpredictable to stand among them as equals. Very well. If they will not accept us as partners, we will forge our own path. If they will not share their galaxy with us, we will claim our own piece of it." She paused, and David found himself leaning forward, hanging on her next words. "Today marks the beginning of a new era for humanity. We have relied on the Council for technology, for knowledge, for permission to expand into certain regions of space. No longer. From this day forward, humanity will be self-reliant. We will push into uncharted territories. We will discover our own worlds. We will build our own alliances with species who see us as equals, not as children to be managed. We will show the galaxy what humans can accomplish when we are free to reach our full potential." The assembled representatives erupted in applause. David saw determination on every face, saw hands raised in agreement, saw the birth of something that would change everything. "She is right," Sarah said quietly beside him. "This is not an ending. This is a beginning." David nodded slowly. "Yes. Yes, it is. The Council thinks they are punishing us by pushing us away. They do not understand that they are setting us free. The Exodus begins." The next 30 days were a whirlwind of activity unlike anything humanity had ever attempted. Every available ship was pressed into service. Cargo vessels, passenger liners, military transports, even private yachts were converted to carry people and supplies. The massive evacuation fleet grew by the day as ships converged on Council worlds from every corner of human space. David returned to Earth briefly to coordinate with President Martinez and the United Earth government. The presidential palace was chaos, with officials running in every direction, displays showing real-time updates from hundreds of locations, and constant communication streams from evacuees needing guidance. "We are pulling it off," President Martinez said as she reviewed the latest numbers. 93% of humans have been evacuated from primary Council worlds. The remaining 7% are in transit or waiting for final transport. "What about the ones who chose to stay?" David asked quietly. President Martinez's expression darkened. 2,347 individuals chose to renounce their human heritage. Most were people who had married into alien families. They made their choice. We have to respect it, even if it hurts. David nodded. He understood intellectually, but emotionally it felt like abandoning family. Every human who stayed behind was someone who had given up their identity, their history, their connection to their species. The Council had forced them to make an impossible choice, and some had chosen love over heritage. "There is something else," President Martinez said. She pulled up a star map showing a region of space far from Council territories. "While we have been focused on evacuation, our survey teams have been exploring the sectors beyond Council jurisdiction. They have found something extraordinary." The map zoomed in, showing a cluster of solar systems connected by stable wormholes. Natural wormholes, not artificial constructs like the Council used for their transportation network. "This region is completely outside Council space," President Martinez explained. "Preliminary scans show over 50 habitable worlds, hundreds more that could be terraformed, and resource deposits that dwarf anything we currently control. It is pristine, unexplored, and according to galactic law, open to whoever claims it first." David felt his pulse quicken. "How far?" 6 months travel at maximum speed using our current drives. "But our engineers believe they can improve our propulsion systems now that we are not limited by Council technology restrictions. They estimate we could cut that time to 3 months with focused development." "The Council told us we expand too quickly," David said with a slight smile. "They have not seen anything yet." President Martinez returned his smile. "That is exactly what I was thinking. I want you to lead the expedition, David. Take the best people we have. Scientists, engineers, military specialists, families willing to be pioneers. Go to this new region and build something the galaxy has never seen before. Build a human civilization that does not apologize for what it is." David felt the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders, but it was not a burden. It was purpose. It was exactly what he needed after the humiliation of the exile. "When do we leave?" he asked. "As soon as the evacuation is complete. We are assembling a fleet of colony ships, supply vessels, and escorts. You will have everything you need to establish permanent settlements in at least 20 systems. From there, you will have the authority to expand as you see fit." "And what about the Council? Will they try to stop us?" President Martinez's expression hardened. "They expelled us from their space. They have no jurisdiction over what we do beyond their borders. If they try to interfere, they will discover that humanity has teeth after all." The fleet departs. 2 months later, David stood on the bridge of the colony ship New Horizon, watching Earth shrink in the viewscreen. Behind his ship, 347 vessels formed up in precise formation. Colony ships carrying 50,000 people each. Supply vessels loaded with construction equipment, seed stocks, genetic libraries, and manufacturing systems. Military escorts to protect them during the long journey and establish defensive positions once they arrived. It was the largest single fleet humanity had ever assembled. It represented hope, determination, and the refusal to accept limitations imposed by others. Captain Mitchell stood beside David, her eyes on the tactical displays. "All ships reporting ready, Ambassador. We are cleared for departure." "Take us out, Captain," David said quietly. It is time to show the galaxy what humanity can become. The fleet's engines flared to life in perfect synchronization. 347 ships turned as one and accelerated toward the edge of the solar system, toward the jump point that would carry them beyond council space, toward a future they would build with their own hands. Behind them, Earth and its colonies watched through telescopes and sensors. Families waved goodbye to loved ones they might never see again. Politicians gave speeches about humanity's resilience. Teachers told children about the brave pioneers heading into the unknown. And in the council chambers, far away in their neutral territory, monitors recorded the departure of the human fleet. Quellen watched the display, its geometric form slowly rotating. They waste their resources on impossible dreams, the High Arbiter said. That region of space is too far, too difficult. They will struggle for years and accomplish nothing. Perhaps then they will understand the value of what they have lost. But Quellen was wrong. The High Arbiter did not understand humans at all. Humanity's greatest strength had never been their technology or their numbers or even their intelligence. It was their refusal to accept that anything was impossible. It was their ability to look at challenges that would make other species give up and see only opportunities. The fleet jumped to faster-than-light speeds, leaving the solar system behind. David stood on the bridge, surrounded by his crew, and felt something he had not felt since the exile, hope. Real, genuine hope for the future. 3 months to the new territories, Dr. Khan said from the science station. Then the real work begins. Then the real work begins, David repeated. Good. I am tired of talking about what humanity can do. It is time to show them. In the depths of space, the human fleet raced toward destiny. Behind them, they left a galaxy that had rejected them. Ahead of them lay an empire that did not yet exist, waiting to be built by people who refused to be told what they could not achieve. The exile was over. The rise had begun. The empire rises. 50 years of transformation. The command center of Fortress Prime hung in orbit above humanity's new capital world, New Terra. Admiral James Cooper stood before the massive observation window, watching construction drones work on the latest addition to the station's defensive grid. Behind him, holographic displays showed the current status of the human territories, 53 colonized worlds, 147 outposts, and a population that had grown from the original 3 million pioneers to over 2 billion citizens. 50 years had passed since the Exodus. 50 years since the Galactic Council had expelled humanity from their space. 50 years of building, learning, and growing without anyone telling them what they could or could not do. James had been 7 years old when his parents joined the colony fleet. He remembered Earth only as images and stories. New Terra was his home, and the vast network of human worlds spreading across this sector was his civilization. A civilization built on human terms, following human values, reaching toward human dreams. Admiral, incoming transmission from the research station at Kepler 7, Lieutenant Maria Santos announced from the communications console. Dr. William Foster says the prototype is ready for testing. James turned from the window, his gray uniform crisp despite the long hours he had been on duty. At 47 years old, he had risen through the ranks of the Human Defense Forces to command the entire military apparatus of what people now called the Terran Commonwealth. It was a responsibility he took seriously, especially given what his scouts had been reporting lately. Put him through, James ordered. Dr. Foster's face appeared on the main screen. The scientist looked exhausted but excited, his white hair disheveled, his eyes bright with the enthusiasm of someone about to reveal a breakthrough. Admiral Cooper, I am pleased to report that the quantum drive system is fully operational. We just completed our first successful test jump. The ship traveled 500 light-years in 3 minutes. That is 30 times faster than our current fastest drives. James felt his pulse quicken. 30 times faster. That would change everything. What about stability? Any side effects? The ship emerged exactly where we calculated, with 0 deviation. The crew reported no adverse effects. The drive is ready for fleet-wide implementation. Excellent work, Doctor. Begin production immediately. I want every ship in the fleet upgraded within 6 months. James paused. We are going to need that speed advantage sooner than you might think. Dr. Foster's expression shifted from excitement to concern. The reports from the border regions? Yes. Something is moving through Council space, destroying everything in its path. If the pattern continues, they will reach Council Central territories within months. After that, our space is next. The Council has not contacted us. James laughed bitterly. The Council expelled us 50 years ago, Doctor. They have not spoken to us since. As far as they are concerned, we do not exist. After ending the transmission, James walked to the strategic display. It showed both human territories and Council space. Red markers indicated the path of destruction moving through the galaxy. Entire star systems had gone dark. Thousands of ships destroyed. Millions of lives lost. The attackers were called the Void Swarm, a machine intelligence from beyond the galactic rim that consumed everything in its path. Captain Richard Hayes entered the command center, his boots clicking on the metal deck. Richard had served with James for 20 years, rising to become the Admiral's chief of staff. His dark skin showed stress lines around his eyes, evidence of too many late nights analyzing the swarm's movements. The latest projections are in, Richard said quietly. At current speed, the swarm will reach the Vexery home world in 42 days. The Corthan systems will fall shortly after. Council Central Command estimates they have 60 days before the swarm reaches their core territories. And their response? They are mobilizing their defense fleets. Over 10,000 ships converging on defensive positions. They are using the same tactics that worked against the Kroth Empire 3 centuries ago. James studied the tactical display showing Council fleet positions. Those tactics will not work. The swarm does not think like biological beings. It adapts, evolves, learns from every engagement. The Council's traditional formations will be slaughtered. Should we send them our analysis? James considered the question. Part of him wanted to let the Council face the consequences of their arrogance. They had cast humanity out, called them too dangerous, too unpredictable. Now they were about to discover what real danger looked like. But James was not motivated by revenge. He was motivated by survival. If the Council fell, the swarm would turn toward human space next. Better to help the Council now than face the swarm alone later. Send them our tactical analysis through encrypted channels. Do not identify the source. Let them think they have independent analysts reaching the same conclusions. Maybe they will listen to themselves. And if they do not? James turned back to the window, watching the stars. Then we prepare for war. A war unlike anything this galaxy has seen before. The Council's desperation. In the Grand Assembly Hall, the same chamber where humanity had been judged 50 years earlier, High Arbiter Quellan addressed the Council with growing desperation. The geometric shapes that formed its body flickered and shifted erratically, reflecting the being's distress. The situation is critical, Quellan announced. The Void Swarm has destroyed 47 Council worlds in the past 3 months. Our defensive fleets have engaged them 12 times. We have lost every engagement. Total casualties exceed 3 million military personnel and 2 billion civilians. Ambassador Thex of the Vexery delegation stood, her crystalline form dimmed with grief. My home world lies directly in the swarm's path. Our defense forces are strong, but after reviewing the battle recordings, I fear they are not strong enough. We need help. From whom? The Corthan representative's voice ground out. Every species in Council space is contributing to the defense. We have assembled the largest military force in galactic history. What more can be done? There is one option we have not considered, a new voice said. The chamber fell silent. Ambassador Lyra of the Centauri Alliance had spoken. The Centauri were a peaceful species, traders and diplomats, rarely involved in military discussions. For Lyra to speak now meant something significant. "Explain," Quellan demanded. 50 years ago, we expelled a species from Council space. We called them dangerous. We said they were too aggressive, too unpredictable. Perhaps those are exactly the qualities we need right now. You cannot be suggesting we contact the humans, Thek said in disbelief. We exiled them. We forced them beyond our borders. They hate us. Do they? Lyra asked calmly. Or did we simply assume they would? The Centauri maintained trade relationships with human colonies before the exile. I remember them as pragmatic, not vengeful. More importantly, I remember them as innovative. They approached problems differently than we did. They found solutions where we saw only obstacles. Quellan's form pulsed with angry red light. The humans are barely a civilization. 50 years ago, they had fewer than 100 worlds. They cannot possibly have the resources to help us. Are we certain of that? Lyra pulled up a holographic display. Our traders have reports from the frontier regions. The humans have not remained static. They have expanded into territories we considered too difficult to colonize. They have built a network of worlds that rivals smaller council members. And there are rumors of technological advances we do not fully understand. Rumors, the Corthan delegate scoffed. We need facts, not speculation. Then let us gather facts, Lyra said firmly. Send an envoy to human space. Assess their capabilities. If they can help us, swallow our pride and ask. If they cannot, we have lost nothing but a few days. The debate raged for hours, but desperation eventually won over pride. The swarm was coming, and the council's traditional methods were failing. They needed something different, something unpredictable. They needed exactly what they had rejected 50 years ago. 3 days later, a small council diplomatic vessel crossed into human territory. It broadcast identification codes and a request for dialogue. Within minutes, a response came back, coordinates for Fortress Prime and permission to approach under peace protocols. Ambassador Lyra commanded the mission personally. As their ship entered orbit around New Terra, she pressed against the viewport, studying the planet below. It was beautiful, with blue oceans and green continents, ringed by orbital stations that gleamed in the sunlight. But what caught her attention were the shipyards. Massive construction facilities floated in orbital space, each one building vessels on a scale that made her breath catch. She counted over 50 ships under construction, and these were just the ones visible from this position. Each ship was larger than Council heavy cruisers, bristling with weapon systems that looked unlike anything in Council arsenals. They have been busy, her aide whispered. Indeed, Lyra agreed. Very busy indeed. They were escorted to Fortress Prime and brought to a conference room that overlooked the planet. Admiral James Cooper waited for them, along with several other human officials. Lyra noticed their uniforms were practical, designed for function rather than ceremony. She also noticed the way they carried themselves, confident, alert, ready for action at any moment. Ambassador Lyra, James said formally. Welcome to New Terra. I must admit, we did not expect to see Council representatives in our space again. Circumstances have changed, Admiral Cooper, Lyra replied honestly. The galaxy faces a threat unlike any we have encountered. The Void Swarm is destroying everything in its path. We need help. You mean the Council needs help, James corrected. The same Council that expelled humanity 50 years ago. The same Council that forced us to abandon homes, break apart families, and start over in territories you considered worthless. Lyra met his gaze steadily. Yes. That Council. I will not pretend the past did not happen, Admiral. We wronged your people. We judged you unfairly and treated you harshly. I cannot change that. But millions of innocent beings will die if the swarm is not stopped. Whatever grievances exist between our peoples, surely they do not justify standing by while civilizations burn. James studied her carefully. Why should we risk human lives for species that rejected us? Because that is what civilized beings do, Lyra said quietly. You called us on it 50 years ago. Ambassador Chen said the council preached peace while practicing hierarchy. He was right. We failed to live up to our own principles. But perhaps humanity can succeed where we failed. Perhaps you can show us what true civilization looks like. The room fell silent. James looked at his fellow officers, seeing his own thoughts reflected in their faces. They remembered the exile, remembered the pain of rejection, remembered being called too dangerous to stand among the galactic community. But they also remembered the principles that had driven humanity to the stars in the first place: protect the innocent, oppose tyranny, help those who cannot help themselves. Show me your tactical data, James said finally. Everything you have on the swarm's capabilities, movement patterns, and previous engagements. Lyra activated her data pad, transmitting files to the human systems. James studied the information with growing concern. The swarm was worse than his analysts had predicted. More adaptive, more relentless, more destructive. The Council is planning a major defensive operation at the Vexery home world, Lyra explained. 10,000 ships will form a defensive perimeter. The swarm will arrive in 38 days. 10,000 ships using traditional formations and tactics, James said. You will lose. All of them. That is what our projections show as well, Lyra admitted. But what choice do we have? James stood and walked to the observation window. Below, New Terra turned slowly in space. Beyond it, dozens of colony worlds depended on his decisions. Behind him, the Terran Commonwealth waited to see what its military commander would choose. Captain Hayes, send a message to Fleet Command. I want every available warship assembled and ready for deployment. We move in 72 hours. Sir, Richard said quietly. That is almost our entire fleet. If this goes badly, we will have left our own worlds vulnerable. If the Council falls, our worlds will be next, James replied. We fight now, while we still have allies, or we fight later, alone and outnumbered. I prefer the first option. He turned back to Lyra. The Terran Commonwealth will assist the Council in defending against the Void Swarm. But understand this, Ambassador, we do this on our terms. Your commanders will follow our tactical plans. Your ships will integrate with our fleet. And when this is over, humanity will be recognized as an equal power in this galaxy. No more exile. No more judgment. Equal partners or nothing. Lyra felt relief flood through her. I will bring your terms to the Council immediately. I believe they will accept. They will accept, James said with certainty. Because they have no other choice. Just as we had no choice 50 years ago. The difference is, we are choosing to help despite how we were treated. I hope the Council learns something from that. The Battle of Vexer Prime. 35 days later, the largest combined fleet in galactic history assembled in orbit around the Vexery home world. 10,000 Council ships formed the outer defensive perimeter, their formations traditional and proven over centuries. But at the center, arranged in patterns that made Council commanders uncomfortable, floated 2,000 human vessels. Aboard the flagship Defiance, Admiral James Cooper studied the tactical displays with satisfaction. The quantum drive upgrades had been completed ahead of schedule. Every human ship could now move faster than anything the Council possessed. That mobility would be their greatest advantage. All human vessels report ready, Admiral, Captain Hayes announced. Council fleets are holding position as ordered. Good. James activated the fleet-wide channel. All commanders, this is Admiral Cooper. In approximately 3 hours, the Void Swarm will enter this system. They will expect us to form a defensive line and try to stop them through attrition. They will expect us to fight like the Council has always fought, static positions, overlapping fields of fire, holding ground at all costs. He paused, letting his words sink in across thousands of ships. We are not going to do that. We are going to fight like humans. Mobile, adaptive, aggressive. We are going to hit them from angles they do not expect with weapons they have never encountered. We are going to show them what it means to face a species that has spent its entire existence learning how to win against impossible odds. On the Council command ship, High Arbiter Quellan listened to James's speech with growing unease. The human commander speaks of aggression and mobility. These are not sound defensive principles. Perhaps not for us, Ambassador Lyra said quietly. But then, our sound defensive principles have failed 12 times already. Maybe it is time to try something different. The swarm arrived exactly when predicted. Sensors detected them first, 10,000 machine vessels, each one a perfect killing machine, emerging from faster-than-light travel in perfect formation. They did not hesitate, did not pause, simply accelerated toward the defenders with mechanical precision. Here they come, James said calmly. All ships, execute plan cascade on my mark. The swarm expected the defenders to hold position. Instead, the human fleet scattered. 2,000 ships broke into groups of 50, using their quantum drives to jump around the battlefield in rapid succession. They appeared, fired devastating volleys, and disappeared before the swarm could respond effectively. The weapons themselves were unlike anything the swarm had encountered. Humanity had spent 50 years developing technology without council restrictions. The results were impressive: plasma cannons that burned at temperatures capable of vaporizing swarm hulls, graviton missiles that crushed machines in localized gravity wells, and quantum disruptors that scrambled the swarm's networked consciousness. Strike Group Alpha, you have swarm command vessels at coordinates 773, James directed. All other groups, maintain harassment patterns. Do not let them establish formation integrity. Commander Lisa Park led Strike Group Alpha. Her 50 ships jumped in close to the swarm command vessels, close enough that council observers gasped at the risk. But Lisa knew what she was doing. At this range, the swarm's longer-range weapons could not track effectively. Her ships unleashed everything they had. 5 command vessels died in the first 30 seconds. The swarm's coordination faltered. Individual machines began making independent decisions, breaking formation, losing efficiency. It is working, Lyra said in amazement. The humans are actually winning. They are not winning yet, Quellan said grimly. Look. The swarm was adapting. New vessels emerged from faster-than-light, reinforcements arriving to replace losses. The machines began predicting human jump patterns, positioning themselves to intercept. James saw it too. They learn fast. Time to show them something new. All ships, execute Protocol Hammer. The human fleet stopped jumping randomly and instead converged on a single point, the heart of the swarm formation. Every ship, all 2,000 vessels, materialized in the same small region of space and fired simultaneously. The concentrated firepower was devastating. Hundreds of swarm machines vaporized instantly. The shockwave disrupted thousands more. But the swarm responded. They turned their full attention toward the human fleet, abandoning their attack on the council ships entirely. Thousands of machines converged on the 2,000 human vessels. Sir, they are surrounding us, Captain Hayes said urgently. We are trapped. Exactly according to plan, James replied. Council fleets, execute your orders now. While the swarm focused on the human ships, the 10,000 council vessels opened fire. Not with the scattered defensive patterns they had used in previous battles, but with concentrated volleys coordinated by human tactical systems. The swarm found themselves caught between two forces, unable to focus on both effectively. All human ships, microjumps only, James ordered. Stay within the combat zone but keep moving. Make them work for every shot. For 3 hours, the battle raged. The swarm adapted, and the humans adapted faster. The machines tried new tactics, and the humans countered them. Slowly, inevitably, the swarm's numbers dwindled. 10,000 became 8,000. 8,000 became 5,000. 5,000 became 2,000. Finally, the last swarm vessel was destroyed. The battlefield fell silent except for the hum of engines and the quiet chatter of damage reports. "We did it," Captain Hayes said in disbelief. "We actually won." James leaned back in his command chair, exhausted but satisfied. "Send recovery teams for our damaged vessels. Coordinate with Council ships for rescue operations. And someone get me casualty reports." The final numbers came in hours later. 300 Council ships lost, 200 human vessels damaged, 43 human ships destroyed. Against an enemy that had annihilated fleets twice this size in previous engagements, it was a remarkable victory. But the cost had been high. 15,000 crew members dead, thousands more wounded. James felt the weight of every loss. These were his people, his responsibility, his decisions that had led them into battle. The New Order. 1 week after the battle, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session. For the first time in 50 years, human representatives were invited to attend. Admiral James Cooper and Ambassador Lyra entered the Grand Assembly Hall together, walking side by side as equals. The chamber was packed. Every council species had sent representatives. Even minor members who rarely attended were present. Everyone wanted to see what would happen next. High Arbiter Quellen's geometric form had stabilized, no longer showing the erratic patterns of stress. The ancient being looked somehow smaller than James remembered from the historical recordings of Ambassador Chen's exile. "The Council recognizes Admiral James Cooper of the Terran Commonwealth," Quellen announced formally. James walked to the center speaking position. He looked around the chamber, seeing the same tiered seats, the same mixture of species, the same setup that had witnessed humanity's judgment 50 years ago. But the expressions on alien faces were different now. There was respect, gratitude, and perhaps a touch of fear. 50 years ago, my predecessor stood in this chamber and was told that humanity was too dangerous, too unpredictable, too aggressive to stand among civilized species, James began. "You expelled us from your space and forced us to build our own civilization beyond your borders." He paused, letting the memory settle over the assembled beings. "Ambassador Chen told you that humanity would remember that day. He told you that we would remember who treated us as equals and who treated us as children to be disciplined. He was right. We remembered. Every human who grew up in the Commonwealth learned about the exile. We learned that we could not rely on others for our security, for our prosperity, for our future. And so we built something new. We explored territories you considered too difficult. We developed technologies you had abandoned as impractical. We created a civilization based on human values, innovation over tradition, adaptation over rigidity, cooperation over hierarchy. In 50 years, we accomplished what took many of your species centuries." Quellen spoke carefully. "Your achievements are impressive, Admiral Cooper. The Council acknowledges that we underestimated humanity's potential. The assistance you provided in defeating the Void Swarm has saved billions of lives. We are grateful." "Gratitude is not enough," James said firmly. "Humanity does not want your thanks. We want recognition as an equal power in this galaxy. We want formal treaties, open borders, mutual defense agreements, and full membership in the Galactic Council." "That is a significant request," a Vexery delegate said. "Council membership requires approval from 2/3 of existing members. It requires centuries of demonstrated stability and adherence to galactic law." "Then change the requirements," James said simply. "The galaxy is not what it was 50 years ago. The swarm proved that. New threats will emerge, threats that cannot be handled by maintaining traditions that are thousands of years old. You need species that think differently, that adapt quickly, that find solutions instead of following established protocols." He looked directly at Quellen. "You need humans. Not as subordinates or junior partners, but as equals. We proved our capabilities. We saved your worlds. Now give us the recognition we have earned. The chamber erupted in debate. Some species argued for immediate acceptance. Others wanted conditions and restrictions. A few still harbored doubts about humanity's long-term reliability. Ambassador Lyra stood from her seat. The Centauri Alliance supports full council membership for the Terran Commonwealth, effective immediately. They have more than demonstrated their worthiness. Any species that questions this should ask themselves, would we rather have humans as allies or watch them build their own power block that rivals the council itself? It was a pragmatic argument, and it worked. Species that had been uncertain suddenly saw the wisdom in bringing humanity into the council rather than risk them becoming a competing power structure. The vote was called. One by one, species cast their support. When the final tally was announced, the result was clear, 78% in favor. Humanity was officially recognized as a full council member. James allowed himself a small smile. Thank you. The Terran Commonwealth looks forward to working with all council species as partners and equals. We bring to this alliance our technology, our military capabilities, and our commitment to protecting civilized space from threats like the swarm. He paused, then added, but understand this, humanity will never again accept judgment from those who think they know better. We will participate in council decisions as equals. We will contribute our perspectives even when they differ from established traditions. And if anyone tries to treat us as subordinates again, we will remind them of what happened the last time we were pushed away. No one here wishes to repeat that mistake, Quellan said quietly. Welcome to the Galactic Council, humanity. May your membership bring prosperity to all our peoples. Later, as James prepared to return to New Terra, Ambassador Lyra approached him in the corridor outside the chamber. You were harder on them than necessary, she observed. The council was already willing to grant membership. I needed them to understand that membership is not a gift they are granting us, James replied. It is recognition of reality. Humanity is a power in this galaxy now, with or without council approval. I wanted to make sure they remember that. Lyra studied the human admiral carefully. You are very different from Ambassador Chen. He was diplomatic, measured, careful with his words. Ambassador Chen lived in a time when humanity was weak and needed to be cautious, James said. I live in a time when humanity is strong and can afford to be direct. Both approaches were appropriate for their circumstances. And what will you do now? Return to your Commonwealth and continue building your empire? James smiled. We will continue growing, yes. But not an empire. Empires rule over others. Humanity learned that lesson long ago. We will build a federation of free worlds, open to any species that wants to join us on equal terms. We will offer protection, technology, and opportunity to those who share our values. That sounds like you are building a rival to the council, Lyra said carefully. No, James corrected. We are building an alternative. Species will have a choice, the council's way or humanity's way. Competition will make both of us better. And if new threats emerge, we will face them together, as we did with the swarm. He extended his hand in the human gesture of respect. Lyra took it, her alien physiology awkwardly mimicking the motion. To the future, James said. Whatever it may bring. To the future, Lyra agreed. James returned to his ship and watched New Terra grow larger in the viewport as they approached. 50 years ago, humanity had been exiled and told they were not worthy of standing among the stars. Today, humanity stood as equals with the oldest civilizations in the galaxy. Ambassador Chen had been right all those years ago. The exile was not an ending. It was a beginning. It forced humanity to rely on themselves, to innovate without restrictions, to build something uniquely human rather than trying to fit into someone else's vision of civilization. The Galactic Council had thought they were punishing humanity by pushing them away. Instead, they had set humanity free. Free to reach their full potential. Free to show the galaxy what humans could accomplish when no one told them it was impossible. James smiled as his ship entered orbit. The Commonwealth had been forged in exile and tempered in battle. Now it would grow into something the galaxy had never seen before, a truly human civilization among the stars. The exile had ended. The Empire had risen. And humanity's story was just beginning.